We had to go through Heathrow, but everything else just spoiled the whole memory. I'm like, "Ah,
No, I'm sorry.
no, it was good. It was good. It was as you can expect.
So
No worries. What food do you want to
What line did you go on?
Viking.
Oh,
My office is like 60 degrees. But it's warmer here.
what's going on?
Comcast cut a cable, all that stuff too. They get fortunate, but then we find out that our generators don't actually kick in. So, one thing is another with this building, I'll tell you. It's just, yeah.
But it's good to know that they don't kick in.
Well, yes, now you know.
Yes.
Yes. Fortunately, it happened when I was out sick that day, so, like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Not touch anything back there. Wait, so if we switch anything over there, then how do they do? I touch anything, I just wanted to check. Yeah, we don't have any outdoor lights. Okay,
Yes.
I just saw it.
Huh? It is a little chilly, but not too bad.
Oh, I feel okay.
I find out good. I get a little, it's like, I'm not gonna go this area.
Right.
It's when it's too hot.
Yeah.
You can't, that's the
cables.
Hopefully over there. I turned all the breakers off.
Oh. These can.
Why is my key? You go get it?
I'll let Linda.
Yeah, Rick was here, said only the back.
It's only the back part.
Oh, it's only, okay.
They cut the line
Over here, not over here.
I asked Steve if there was anything I could do, he said if I flip the breaker, someone could get juiced on the wires, but
Rick knows what to do.
you know what you're doing better than I do.
I do know what I'm doing. Most of the time.
Watch what he's doing.
Not always.
It's good to have
How's
someone.
electricity, I'll, defer to you.
No, I
Oh,
thought
no.
I was doing something, I'm like,
Typically, it's me back there just pushing things around. Well, this other.
that's your seriously not gonna work.
Oh, I can see.
I thought I was doing that, and I was like, you know what?
And, and.
I'm gonna give your cell phone. I'm gonna call you and I'll tell you. Oh, no.
Well, we should be able to just look out the window.
And then I was gonna go to another cafe, and then I got home with my friend. Oh, that's fun. Yeah.
Well, I can make my code.
I can't figure out your share.
Well, it's fine.
Stuff like still on out there?
No.
What's going on with,
But he, based on what he did, he feels like it might work. On
Did we
Thursday.
get the wrong cable or just?
I told him to get the wrong one, but
Okay.
everything else
Good,
seems.
we're blaming you.
No, yeah, 100% accountability on that one. But everything else seems to work, so I feel pretty good about it.
Cool. All right, so we'll try it again in a couple weeks.
Well, on he's here for
I'm
the
gonna,
meeting
I'm gonna
Thursday.
Thursday. I'll bring my own cable.
Okay.
That is the one that it should have been.
Okay.
And I'll know that.
Whoop, we might, if we order it tomorrow, it might be here by Thursday.
Yeah, I can send it. I'll send it over now. Whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if it's next day, if it's Amazon next day, we might have.
Yeah.
I had to restart these. They were doing
myself.
Don't we know that my husband's doctor is going to call in the middle of the meeting?
Did you come, were you all the way downtown today?
No, we went to Westchester, same thing.
Susan went downtown yesterday and she had an appointment to rush, some test. She has to have her 6 weeks.
Oh, sounds like, yeah.
And so she's saying that I she'll look at Uber, she'll look at taxi, it's all very exciting.
She take the train down?
He said, if you like getting, he said, why do all you people like this? Why don't you just get on the number 6 bus? You come in 5 minutes, it's like $2.50, and the 6 bus comes took her right back over to North Michigan Avenue where she wanted to be.
I don't do buses.
That is city that works.
Okay. And it's time to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. Would you please stand with me and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford,
Present.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
Trustee Dickon,
Here.
Trustee Eastman,
Here.
Trustee Hollander appears to be absent, Trustee Jamerson.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting of January 21. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any comments or questions, additions, deletions? Hearing none, seeing,
No, I have one. I'm just trying to find it. Give me just 1 second, please. Um, Page 8, approval of a contract with Quadient Leasing USA. Second to last sentence, it says, Director Vasquez explained there are a lot of mailings that go out through the village. And I believe in our discussion, we have confirmed that we can identify the mass mailings that went out. So I think that deserves correction.
how would you correct it? Your suggestion, please?
So the sentence right now states, Director Vasquez explained there are a lot of mailings that go through the village, comma, however, in a discussion, none were identified. I'm open to your suggestions.
I
We're
was
talking
not-
about
I
mass
wasn't-
mailings.
I wasn't present, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I agree with Trustee Dickon. We did discuss the number of mailings, whether they could be done on an outsourced basis. And I believe Director Vasquez was going to do more research based on that and then come back to the Board of Trustees with some ideas on how to better manage the postage and mailing spend.
Okay, that's a little lengthy, but well, and discussion ensued. How's that?
I was trying to provide some clarity for you.
Oh, thank you
Mayor
very
Ford
much.
as well.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Appreciate the effort.
Is the idea that there was a lot of specifically large lot mailings or mass mailings as opposed to just mailings?
Correct.
Okay, maybe
Correct.
just that,
I think
Director.
my intention was that there were a variety of mailings, not necessarily mass mailings, but just a variety of items that might be necessary for the different departments to mail out. I'm not sure
No,
if that
I
would be
understand
more
that, but I
accurate.
think the purpose of this equipment was to make the village more efficient in its mass mailing efforts, of which I don't think we were able to identify many.
Trustee Jamerson, please.
I wasn't here, but I can give you a little bit of history on the postage meter situation. We used to use stamps.com, which was very cumbersome because
Okay.
we actually do send out a lot of mailings. So to your point.
And various and different kinds of
Yeah, they're not
mailings.
mass mailings. We've always sent mass mailings out with the service in most cases, so.
If I may clarify, I don't
Sure.
think this is about a postage meter, though. This is about equipment that does the folding and the stuffing.
Director.
It was about both. I was saying at the last meeting that we currently have a postage machine and an additional machine that helps fold and stuff the envelopes. And I was saying that if we considered moving to this service that Quadient offers, we could send them a file to do that mass mailing for the utility bills. And by doing so, we might be able to remove the folding machine from the lease, which would bring the price down a little bit. But we would still have other mailing needs beyond the mass mailing.
But if we were just trying to remove any misimpression of what happened, why don't we just take out that sentence and say discussion ensued among trustees to consider whether outsourcing would be more economical? And I mean, all the minutes are trying to do is convey the substance. And
Substance,
just a mere outline of the discussion. They don't have to go into all the.
I agree. My concern was that this implies that there is a significant amount of mailing which would justify the spending of the $16,000. Hence, I bringing this up.
I know we're still looking into that. It's a lot of time on this. I agree with Attorney Huvard that why don't we just talk in general terms, discussion
Just delete
regarding
that.
outsourcing.
Just delete that sentence and just.
Delete the
there was
sentence and
a
discussion,
long discussion about outsourcing.
Whatever. Okay, well,
That works.
If that
Thank you.
works for everyone, I mean.
okay.
I will amend my motion to accept that change.
Is the second still in place?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next, moving on to the Finance Director's report. First item is approval of the bills as submitted. Do I have a motion for approval of the bills?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Their discussion. Any questions on what's been submitted here? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Apparently, I missed our treasurer, who was here last time. He's not here this time. Director of Community Services is unable to be with us this evening. So moving on, oh, yes. Oh, darn, this is the second time I've done that, or maybe more, but I apologize to you. Director Vasquez, the Finance Director's report, please.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor. I have a few items for tonight's report. We are kicking off our engagement with Lauterbach and Amon with a meeting here at Village Hall tomorrow morning. Again, this is to assist us in our audit prep work. And tentatively, our audit presentation is scheduled for the May 20th board meeting. The next item is back in 2016, the village entered into an agreement with Deerfield to share a portion of property and sales tax for the car wash located at 777 Saunders Road. It appears that the village has never made payments during this 10-year agreement that's in place. I've been working with my counterpart over at Deerfield to calculate the amount that we owe to get us back in a good standing, and we should see that on a future bill list that's presented to the board. I've brought up a few times in my report the topic of health insurance. Right now, we have a meeting scheduled on February 13th with IPBC to discuss what their health insurance plan could look like for village employees. The mayor, Trustee Smith, Chief Dano, and I will be in on this meeting. And then finally, I do have some concerns with the recent news with the new federal administration that there could be freezes on federal grant money. While the initial memo on the freeze was rescinded, there is still some confusion on what could happen to grant money moving forward. Right now, I'm having GHA check with the Council of Mayors to see if the money we are expecting for the upcoming Saunders Road project is already being held at a more local level already. That money is part of a surface transportation program. And while it is federally funded, the program is managed at a local level by the Council of Mayors. I don't have any additional information at this point, but I believe that this is going to be a fluid situation, and I'm monitoring updates I get from the Illinois Municipal League as well as from the Illinois City County Management Association. I will keep the board informed if I learn of any potential impacts to our village. And that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for our director? Trustee Eastman, please.
Just one on that issue. Have you reached out to Congressman Schneider just to make him aware of the impacts in our district of the federal funding freeze?
Not at this point. I will note that on, I believe it's the 15th, there's a legislative breakfast, and I believe Congressman Schneider will be one of the attendees there, and I expect that this topic will come up, and I will make sure that our concerns are raised.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Any other questions? Trustee Dickon?
Yes, I know you've got your hands full with the upcoming audit, and I know you're planning to take some time off with the expansion of your family. Congratulations again. A couple of weeks ago, you've reported that the village is looking into credit card processing as an online method of payment for Riverwoods residents for certain types of bills, such as permit applications. Just wanted to see where we stand on those. Where does this fall on the priorities list, and if we have a timeline for that?
It is still a priority that I want to have accomplished this year, but I have not made any additional progress on it beyond the initial, I don't know what you would call it. We had Moses and I in finance, we had a meeting with BS&A, who is our accounting software, who was offering the product that I think would work really well for us. We had an initial meeting with them to see how it works. Because it is a relatively new product that we learned about in October. So I do not have any additional updates, although it is on our list of things to get accomplished this year.
Okay. Do you have a timeline on that other than just general this year?
At this time, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, moving briskly along. Consultants report, village attorney, please.
I don't think I have anything that's not on the agenda.
Okay. Plan Commission report, Chair Brightcroft.
Good evening. I have a very brief report. The Plan Commission will meet on February the 6th to have a hearing on a text amendment to the zoning ordinance governing the office and research compatible district to permit civic, cultural, religious, and educational uses. So that's Thursday night.
On a parcel of less than 1 acre.
On a parcel of less than 1 acre. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Any questions for our chair?
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Zoning Board of Appeals, I don't believe they met, and our chair is unavailable, as is our director at this meeting. Police report. Chief?
Yes, the police activity is in the packets. Additionally, I just wanted to report that a business notified the police department about a recent incident where a customer felt the business owed them money. When the business representative explained to that the customer was mistaken, the customer mentioned that they owned a gun. The business only wanted us to be aware of the incident, but given the context of the customer statement, we made a clear and present danger submission to the Illinois State Police because the person did have a concealed carry license. Later in the day, after we made the submission, we actually heard back, and the state police responded. They affirmed the clear and present danger request, and this resulted in the immediate revocation of the person's firearm owner's identification card and concealed carry license. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for our chief?
Chief, so in that situation, is there an effort to remove the weapon from the person or from the residence, or is it just notification that the license has been revoked and they shouldn't do it if they're doing what's right?
Both. So what happens is when somebody's firearm firearm owner's identification card is revoked or suspended, the department where the person resides is given immediate notification. And then it's their responsibility to make sure that that person is given the correct paperwork that the state police also mails to that person, and also to explain to them that they have to get rid of any firearms and either turn them over to the police or turn them over to somebody else who has a valid card, and that they're not allowed to keep it in their house. So we do get those from the state police ourselves, and I send 2 officers over to the house and make sure they fill out the correct paperwork. And also, we also ask them to turn over their suspended card.
A quick question.
Trustee Dicken. Mhm.
Thank you. With the Riverwoods Road and Duffy Lane project coming up tomorrow, I know there's been a number of digital signs on Saunders and Duffy Lane. Is this something that the Riverwoods Police Department puts up, or is this Lake County?
It's all Lake County.
Okay, because there's a sign that says Riverwoods Duffy Public Meeting, and that's it. Like, there's no date, there's nothing. It feels like a page is
I think
missing.
we've had it in the newsletter a couple of times, I believe.
That I know. but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that particular sign is,
What we might
kinda
do,
useless.
I think that there is now, Lake County keeps a website of each of its projects.
do,
I think
yes.
there's a project for this, and maybe we could put that link on our website for people to know to get information.
we have a
about it.
link to it.
Oh,
It's already done.
Yeah,
Well,
it's,
then-
it's there. Yeah, no, my concern was specifically regarding this
Well,
sign,
They
which is
just, they
kind of
took
useless.
the lazy way out in terms of what they put on the sign, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Can somebody contact the county and just tell them that the sign is not working properly?
Yeah, that's the first I heard about it, but I'll take care of that tomorrow.
Thank you.
The meeting's tomorrow. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments? Fire District, Chief Kruger, no report. What I can report is that we're setting up a meeting with our fire department to review firefighting plans within the village. So that is to take place within the next 2 weeks. That's an informational comment and item from the president. Staff has been very busy, and it's been focusing on trying to make sure that we have all the information that we can for the upcoming workshop on public-private streets. So that's taken precedence here. So you might see some things maybe not getting done at the same time as you would have liked, but we feel that that's very important. And there's a lot of information, both legal and financial, that we believe would be important for that meeting. So other things that are going on within Village Hall, our HVAC system is wacky. My office is 60 degrees, and we've had some power outages. So there are lots of things going on with our building that have made it a little bit difficult to get everything done that we need to have done. But moving forward, visitors wishing to address the board on items that are not on the agenda?
May I ask a question?
Trustee Dicken.
Yes. About 2 years ago, we launched drainage survey with GHA, and I feel like that project just kind of disappeared. I know they were going to come back to us and report with their findings.
If you're
and
talking about
recommendations.
stormwater management, we had a
It's the
meeting.
stormwater management drainage
Yes,
survey.
we have a committee that has met. The committee has reviewed the report. We actually went out and got another bid for a review of that report. And it would be really nice to have the time and the focus to get back to stormwater management, but there is a committee that is working on that. The alternatives that were presented by GHA were not realistic to this village and were very, very expensive. So that's still on the list of things to do, as is the water main project, which we tied off with a report, a formal report to the board. I believe there has been a formal report to the board about the Stormwater Management Committee as well. If you look in the board packets, you will see reports, you'll see printed reports that are from and about those committees.
Yeah, I tried. Can you give me dates perhaps, or?
I'm sorry, say again.
Can you give me specific dates to look for those reports? I tried looking for an update. I wasn't able
Look
to
for
find
stormwater
one.
management. I can't give you anything more than that because we got sidetracked with hiring staff during 23 and 24. We were hiring staff and digging out of financial issues. So kind of took a second seat in order to get our house in order with respect to staffing.
Okay, who's on this committee? Maybe I could just reach out to them directly for a report.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure I can find the reports. I'm happy to.
I appreciate it, thank you.
And what would you like to have happen as a result of that?
I guess I'm just looking for
For an
the
update?
status and update on that project. 'Cause
Okay,
it's been
fair
2
enough.
years and it just kind of feels like it ended up in a black hole.
Meg, would you like to?
Yes, Meg Redlewski. I know it's the last name that's tricky. You have it. Spell again. Retelewski. Thank you. So I wanted to find out at what point will the new burn ordinance be considered or presented? And the reason being, it's been about 7 months since originally we have approached the board with a petition and multiple different signatures, numerous emails, appeals, conversations, and it doesn't seem to be enough urgency from our perspective to see a little bit more movement towards a resolution that is going to help us feel safe and healthy, in fact. And with all the California fires that have been happening recently, it made us even more aware what the danger of fire is and the fact that in our area we do not have enough fire hydrants. And it is not only unsafe but unhealthy. So I was wondering if there is some sort of a timeline where we can expect a proposed resolution with spring coming up in March. I suspect that the burning is going to pick up again. And as I mentioned multiple times, it's not just one neighbor, it's multiple neighbors. It has started to spread to multiple different properties.
I think what I reported to you a bit earlier is that Director Witt and I have a work plan. And the beginning of that work plan, is a meeting with the fire department to figure out how we would fight the fire, if there were to be one. Another thing that we've done is we've tried to explicitly define what is currently in the burn ordinance. And that involves some mapping, if you will. And individual properties it's a 20-foot setback, or the side yards are inappropriate, and 50 feet from any existing structure. So each property and the property you're talking about explicitly, there is very little area there where there's allowable burning. That property has also asked for a permit, and we are trying to have that person come in to talk to us directly. Part of our work plan is to go and knock on the door and deliver, this is our set of regulations. In the meantime, we do need to work on yet another compromise situation. So it's what can we do with what we've got and try to keep moving forward and keeping you safe, and how would we go about getting you more safe? In the ordinance, it currently says that smoke can also be a violation of the nuisance ordinance. And the use of citations. What we really need to do is make sure that our officers in particular have very, very clear direction on what can and cannot be burned. And it doesn't get around to measuring sticks. It talks about specifically yard waste from the property. And the issue is just actually writing citations as well. So as I say, in the meantime, and unfortunately, we've got other things that have pushed ahead in the list of things to do. And so in the meantime, we're trying to do with what we can and trying to knock on the door. Actually, Director Witt and I were going to go over and knock on the door and say, hey, here's what it says. Here's what you're going to, if this happens, this is what's going to happen. So if we can work ahead a little bit with what we've got, but then try to bring something back with a compromise in terms of time of, allowable days or whatever period, be more explicit with that period of not allowing burning. Because right now, it's burning is not allowed except, and there are a couple of exceptions, and most require permits. And logs are not an allowable burning.
I just have one clarification question with regards to nuisance, because nuisance is with regards to smell, right? And it
Right.
hasn't been enforced in the past, meaning it could smell for
Yeah.
days at a
Yeah,
time,
yeah, I'm
and
with
you
you.
cannot breathe, and
I'm
it
with
hasn't
you.
been enforced because of the two ordinances. Is it possible to have the nuisance enforced going forward? Because it's already in the ordinances
I'm going to say
anyway.
yes, it is possible. Yes,
Okay.
it is possible.
So the officers, when the neighbors call the non-emergency line and say,
Yeah,
it has been an issue.
yes. And the officers many times might go out and collect information, and then the director can go out and issue a citation.
Okay. Will the fire be put down at that situation?
If it's burning things that aren't yard waste, or if it's in the setbacks or less than 50 feet from a structure, they will be asked to put it out.
Okay. But if it's a nuisance,
I wish I could answer you more explicitly than that at this
okay.
point.
No, I'm just trying to.
If our director were here, I'm sure he would have more to say on that.
Because I understand it takes the
Yes,
time, and
yes,
I get it, but I'm trying to make sure that we as neighbors get to the point that we have some sort of level of protection as it's about to happen and probably in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So there.
Your point is believe me, your point is well taken, and I would love to move.
So, approximately, is it March, is it April that you might, that might be put
I
on
would
the
hope we
agenda?
would get it back on in March.
On the agenda to discuss it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to address the board this evening? Oh, Trustee Eastman, please. Yes, sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I think that approach is a good approach to it. And I think, potentially reaching out to the one particularly challenging offender, I think that's a good idea because it says we're serious about enforcing things. We're giving you notice and then obviously following up on that. But I think that might be effective with that particular case. And then clearly there's broader changes to the ordinance that need to take place subsequent to that.
Thank you. Trustee Dickin.
Yes, for when this is brought up to the board again, if I may please request for an update to where we stand with reaching out to LRS for a leaf collection service with a vacuum machine that Lincolnshire has.
If the director were here, we have had this discussion. That's inappropriate to Riverwoods. There are no curbs, there are no set places for a vacuum truck, and I believe those trucks are much larger than our private streets would accommodate. I'm sure he would give you better information than that, but that's generally what I understand.
So does that mean we're not going to pursue this conversation further with LRS?
He pursued it to find out how big the truck was and all of those kinds of things. Yes, he did.
They're smaller than the waste pickup trucks. I'm puzzled by your reaction.
We will follow up with you on that.
Thank you.
Randy Merrill.
On a lighter note, Randy Merrill, RPC. Just to bring you up to date, I just today sent out a reminder email because we had to cancel a webinar that we were supposed to have tomorrow. Swalco needed more time to prep, and she also likes to have a long lead time for advertising and getting local communities involved. So we will probably put that back on late March. We plan on including LRS. She definitely wants to be a participant on it. We'll talk about the orange bag, and we're going to really focus a lot on composting because there seemed to be a lot of interest. And we had wonderful responses on our questionnaire. So we're excited to work with sustainability in putting together the forum. I know Julie's leading that, but I want to say we got 124 unique responses and very thorough, great ideas. Surprising in many ways, a lot of people said they did not know about the ecological study and we're interested in doing one. So if every one of those turned into an actual report, there's about 45 people that were interested. I think that's great. We also are, of course, partnering with sustainability on the Earth Day birthday and getting a lot of different vendors of environmental subject to participate in that. A lot of work in progress, and I know sustainability, Julie is doing, and Lori are doing a lot of work on that, but we're helping and partner that in advertising. That's what I have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for our chair? Yes.
I'm not
Jim?
sure it's a question for Randy, but it might be a question for Trustee Smith. The orange bag, I know there's some issues with it, and I will say just anecdotally, normally they pick up my recycling first and then the garbage. This week they picked it up the other way, and I had 2 orange bags in my recycling bin, and they did not end up in my empty garbage thing. So they must be picking it up. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they're picking it up.
Trustee Jamerson, I did have conversations with LRS about the concerns that a few residents, including yourself, including some others, had expressed to me about Hefty Renew bags being thrown out. The representative from LRS did confirm back to me that all the crews had been trained now, and that they were expected to do obviously what was right, and he had every belief that they would. And I've asked a few of them, so I'll ask you now, since you weren't here at the last meeting, if you see anything different, let me know, because he was very interested in making sure that they were doing the right thing.
Seems to be working.
Good. Yep. So anyways, we did kind of close that loop, and it seemed like everything was okay.
Trustee Smith, if you've got a link with LRS, perhaps you can answer the question or get the
I
question.
can ask the question.
You can ask the
I
question.
don't know the answer, but
Okay,
yes.
that would be great.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Are there any other visitors wishing to address the board? Okay, moving on to new business. First item of new business, approval of a contract for ecological services with Baxter Woodman in an amount not to exceed $15,000. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Trustee Clayton.
You know, our Village Ecologist is not here tonight, and we really don't have a lot of information on what the status is of all of our prior efforts in trying to do the invasive controls. Are we in good shape? Are we losing ground? Are we gaining ground? Is this, what's this element of the program at this particular point in time? Is it mostly maintaining previous efforts, or are we finding new things to do? It's just kind of hard to.
This is part of the 10-year plan?
Right.
Yeah. We could ask our ecologist to join us at the next meeting and get a report.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Trustee Jamerson.
So you still want us to go ahead with this, so, okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next order of business is the approval of an ordinance amending the text of the Riverwood zoning ordinance to establish a new zoning district to be known as the Planned Development Overlay District in the Village of Riverwoods. I will ask our village attorney to please lead us through this.
There was a memo that I regret not including, but next time around we will, that was provided to the Plan Commission because this ordinance really was the same as the ordinance that was discussed by the board at the workshop on residential plan development, with a couple of changes that I want to just briefly mention. We have been.
Before you move forward, may I please note that this is a first reading only? Okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
So you'll notice that, I think I'm on page 35 of the packet. We call this the Plan Development Overlay District. In all of the prior discussions, we had been, I would say, colloquially referring to this as the Residential Plan Development Ordinance, forgetting that we have such a thing called the Residential Plan Development Ordinance that was what was used to approve Thorngate. I know I'm supposed to look straight. So
8,
don't think
and you'll be great.
Don't think I'm rude. I'm trying to. So then we realized that we had a little bit of a nomenclature problem. And as often happens, we work on all of the granular detail of what's in the ordinance. And then when I try to prepare it for actually adopting and putting it in the village code, we start to think, well, now where does it really fit? And we didn't want to save over the existing residential plan development ordinance. So we needed something different. We started thinking about it. One of the concepts that was appealing to us, and in fact, in the early drafts, we called this an overlay district, is to take all of these provisions and call them an overlay district. And what is an overlay district? It's like transparencies on a overhead projector. If you take the case, for example, of Wolters Kluwer, that property is in the Office and Research 1 district. If upon an application made to the village then decided to apply the overlay district, that parcel could be zoned to the Plan Development Overlay District at the same time that it remains in the Office and Research 1 district. So that means that the uses in the Office and Research 1 district are still permitted uses, but in addition, the uses in the overlay district can be approved. And what that allows us to do is potentially readapt office space, save some office space, have a mixture of office and residential. Doing this gives us more options. The nuts and bolts of the overlay district are the permitted uses or whatever are the uses in the underlying district. So that's office in the underlying district. The special use in the plan development overlay district is a plan development. It is the residential plan development. We just didn't call it that, but it's the name of it is a plan development. That's the special use in the district. And then starting in, this would be on page 36 of the packet, basically all of the provisions that follow from here were what was discussed by the board at the workshop. I think one of the changes we added was to include our chairman of the Plan Commission as a member of the sketch committee or the technical committee that was to meet. I think Trustee Clayton, you had made that suggestion. But technically, this is the same ordinance. We had to change we're referred to something like the residential plan development. We had to change it because we're using different nomenclature. But substantively, this part is not changed. So what changed is addressing the plan development provisions within the sort of the superstructure of an overlay district, which we think we could apply, to the Office and Research District. We might be able to apply it elsewhere. There's still a minimum size of 25 acres. So it's just not, the overlay district isn't something that's intended to be applied, in little spot zones. It's still a major classification. So that's my general overview of what we've done.
Discussion. Trustee Clayton, please.
I'm sorry if I'm slow, but you kind of lost me with, we have a residential plan development ordinance and we have now a planned unit development ordinance. Are they in conflict with each other?
No, the residential plan development ordinance, it only can apply in the R1 district and only applies as currently written to a tract of 125 acres or more. But it is the set of provisions that govern Thorngate.
Trustee Clayton.
Sorry, I'm channeling Trustee Hollander here, who sent me this. Was there a reason to have the density of 6 residents per acre, 4,000 square feet? Seems high.
Excuse me. Could you come closer so you'll be picked up on the tape,
Well,
please?
I'm hearing it, but okay.
Oh, yeah.
Was there a reason to have the density of 6 residents per acre? Seems high. Wonder if 4 equal to a quarter acre lot is feasible If the explanation is logical, just no objection, just interested in why.
We looked at, the Plan Commission looked at a number of developments. And one of the outcomes of studying these other developments was to learn that many of the attributes that we liked the most about developments was not related to the number of units per acre as dramatically as it was related to the quality of landscaping, the way in which garages and units were concealed from the street, the amount of open space and amenities. One of the things that our planner, Lee Brown, encouraged us to look at was the overall, the attributes that made for quality development as opposed to just picking a density number as a starting point. So you have all this language in this ordinance that talks about those qualities. We could have chosen a smaller number. I don't know. I think we were, at the outset of the process, we were looking at the possible readaptive use of the Wolters Kluwer building, for example. We figured that if you looked at one of those types of uses, or take Discover, for example, you might fit numerically a lot more units than you're thinking of in a traditional development. So again, to maintain flexibility, we chose what we thought was a range that would allow a lot of flexibility. It may be more than is ever going to be proposed for strictly a residential development, and that we would rely on the other provisions in the ordinance to give us the room. Because right now, 6 is only possible when you meet all of the required standards of excellence plus all of the sort of supercharged standards. You can't even get up to there until, you can't modify density to that level until you've achieved all of those elements. And I can, for the next meeting, if it would be helpful, I can try and put together a short summary of how that would apply.
If I could follow up with that, flexibility I think is key, and I have a couple comments about that. But one, is this ordinance, does a developer have to meet every provision of the ordinance? And the reason why I'm asking is, for example, on page 39, number 4 says it shall be used. Number 5 said it should reflect. Number 6 says it shall be. Number 7 says it should be. So is this kind of a blanket provision that a developer must meet every aspect of, or is the Plan Commission and the board given some flexibility in that regard?
I think we're given flexibility. I think and this is what I'd like to kind of take some time in a memo to tease apart, because there might be a few shoulds and shalls that we need to make more consistent, but there are a set of standards that are the required minimum. They all have to be met. And then there's a set of standards that if you aspire to more density, these are the other things we're looking at. And I think we can look at that more carefully.
One more.
No, come on.
I still have failed to see the logic of a minimum area for this ordinance. As a matter of fact, I think it substantially weakens the ordinance. I think that there's no reason, if a developer has to meet all these requirements and they're on 20 acres, does that mean that they can't qualify? If they're on 15 acres and they meet all the requirements, does it mean they can't? I don't understand the reason for a minimum size. The criteria is that they need to meet the essential, whatever the requirements are, and then whatever additional requirements there are for additional density. If a developer was clever enough to come in with a 15-acre site and said, I can do all that, and why should we turn them away?
My initial suggestion on that was to have a minimum tract size that was large enough to prevent someone from assembling, say, 3 lots in the R2 district, because I don't think people want to see a 6-acre plan development possibility in the middle of the R2 district, at least now in 2025. I think I suggested at one point 8 or 9 acres or something like that. The Plan Commission had a different view on that and had a long discussion about that. I don't know if our chair wants to weigh in on that, but I thought the minimum tract size, the rationale I could come up with was to reassure residents that we weren't creating a tool that would become invasive in the middle of the R2 or the R1 district. And for that purpose, I think you could live with a smaller tract size. But I wasn't at one of the meetings where the Plan Commission had a long discussion about this. There were some other views expressed. That's what I can tell you.
Do we have a report from the Plan Commission on this?
We will. We will.
Would you like to comment? No, I mean, if you feel that he's covered it, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions at this point?
I don't think we actually.
I'll move for first reading and approval. First reading and adoption.
No, just first reading.
First reading. I'll move for first reading.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Moving on to the third item of new business. Another first reading, approval of an ordinance adding affordable housing as Title 13 of the Village of Riverwoods Code. Council.
This ordinance is substantively very similar to what was discussed at our workshop on affordable housing, although I inserted a few percentages, at least for the sake of discussion, and just for the benefit of those who weren't at the workshop or for anyone who tunes in to listen. The idea is to have an affordable housing requirement that is applied differently to rental as opposed to for sale product. A developer of a for sale product has the option of providing affordable units within the development, but would not be required to in this draft, and instead would pay a fee in lieu. This draft ordinance says that the fee in lieu will be the amount set in the fee ordinance, in the annual village fee ordinance, so that we can adjust it annually. So the number for the fee in lieu is not here, but it's something that the board can set and adjust, annually. And I think in one of our meetings, we gave you some of the variation among the various villages, what those amounts are. Some are 90, 100,000, some are 125. I think the highest we came up with was 175,000 a unit. So that's what would happen for a for sale development where the developer paid the fee in lieu and didn't try and put the units within the development. The requirement for a for sale development, I'll stay with that because we'll keep on track, is that 10% of the units be affordable, which means if they're not provided on site, that a fee in lieu has to be paid in lieu of providing affordable units that represent 10% of the development. For multifamily rental, it's really the same concept, except that it's 7.5% of the units that have to be affordable, of which a minimum of 5% have to be actual on-site units. And 2.5% could be satisfied with a cash fee in lieu payment. This is essentially the model in Arlington Heights, the village of Arlington Heights, which we discussed at the workshop. In terms of defining what does it mean to be affordable, the standard for multifamily rental units would be 50% affordable to moderate income and 50% affordable to low income households. Then you have to look at what those definitions imply. Low income households in our defined terms, I have to go back and find them, are households that have incomes that don't exceed 60% of the area median income. That seems very low, but that's the standard that IDA uses for this definition. So in this respect, we are following IDA. For moderate income households, we did not follow the IDA standard exactly. Their standard is 80% of the median income. And for owner occupied units, we suggested the standard be between 80 and 120%. So the rationale for that is that a number of villages, and I think we shared some of this information, will have graduated amounts where a certain percentage are at 60% of median, a certain percentage at 80, a certain percentage at 100%. It gets to be, you know, if we had a lot of projects and we were talking about a lot of units, it might be interesting to do that. I thought maybe for at least the initial draft, we would start with a simple binary. Low income is this percentage, and moderate income is this percentage. For an owner-occupied unit, for a median income between 80 and 120%, it gives the village the opportunity to have a developer satisfy the affordable requirement by providing units on site. I mean, because if they pay the fee in lieu, it doesn't matter how we define this. However we define it, if they're paying a fee, they've just paid the fee. But if you're really trying to encourage a developer of a for sale development to have units on site that are affordable, saying between 80 and 120% is maybe more feasible. It may actually result in the developer choosing to have affordable units on site because when you get between over 100% of median, when you get to 100 to 120%, you're sometimes getting to an area of the demographic that planners refer to as the missing middle. You know, you have programs that help with subsidized programs that help households that are only a percentage of median income, but for people who hover just near the median or near it, maybe slightly above it, this is still a very expensive area in which to live. So this particular tweak to the ordinance, I would say, is something that we put in for Riverwoods. You can find examples of this in other villages, but the IDA definition would limit moderate income to 80% of area median. So the rest of it, I think, pretty much follows the discussions we had at the workshop. I think the last thing is maybe on page 57 of the packet. In lieu of making a cash payment, we also, I was looking around at some of the other examples, we could accept a dedication of land from a developer. So this could even be on the site that they're developing. For example, the developer says, I don't know about paying a fee, but I'll make 3 acres of this site available as a dedication. And then the village could go and recruit the means to develop the site. That wasn't something that we discussed, I don't recall, at the workshop.
We didn't.
I thought it was an interesting concept. It might work on one of these larger tracks. And I thought it would be worthwhile to put it in as a possibility for the board to consider.
Excuse me.
Trustee Jamerson, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
That's exactly what I was going to ask a question about. So thank you for bringing it up. I'm confused. I mean, I guess they could dedicate a piece of land someplace else in the village that they bought and then let somebody else develop it. Is that your thought process?
Or the site, or the tract themselves.
Well, or on their tract. But
Either way.
But I guess we would have to approve that, right? I mean, they couldn't buy three houses in the R1 district and say, here's a piece of land I want you to build affordable housing on, right?
It has to be within the village, appropriate for development as determined by the village board.
Okay.
We don't have to accept the dedication. That's a legislative act.
Thank you.
My question regarding the land in lieu instead of the fee in lieu, the land in lieu, does it have to be developed into affordable housing at the expense of the village or somebody else? Or could it be used for wetland preservation, woodland preservation, green space?
Well, we have other requirements, for example, in our subdivision code for land dedication for park or space, depending on the density of a development. And this dedication would be for the purpose of assisting with housing. We have other means to accept dedications for other purposes. So in this ordinance, it would be inappropriate to say, you know, if you want to provide for your housing requirement by giving us land for some other purpose, I don't think that would serve our
Yeah,
purpose.
I was just
here.
asking.
But we have other means of asking for open space.
Trustee.
Trustee Eastman's next.
Trustee
and I'll go.
Eastman. And then-
No, I would just add that, I think a lot of thought went into this, and I think, I like the optionality for meeting the different requirements, because after all, we don't really know, what a developer considers the right threshold or would, disincentivize them from developing. Could you go a little bit more into kind of what were the proxy villages that we looked at? I mean, I know we kind of thought that Arlington Heights was a good one. I think it might be helpful for people to kind of understand how we settled on these percentages and that there was a good thought process behind it.
Well, the village of Skokie spent a couple of years developing their affordable housing ordinance. I think it was passed in May of last year. They just applied it to a development at Old Orchard Shopping Center, or were about to, I understand. And their percentage was 7.5%. I don't know if they looked at Arlington Heights, which has been around longer and also had settled on that percentage. And I think I mentioned at the workshop that I've known some of the people in the planning development division in Arlington Heights for a long time, and they've had a lot of experience developing affordable housing. They feel very good about what they've accomplished. Of course, they have a downtown where they could really focus on this. But that was important, I think, in the distinguishing between for sale and rental projects. They just found their experience that the for sale product was very, very difficult to manage for Arlington Heights, which has a lot more resources than we do. Other villages around us are at 10%. Some are even at 15% as a requirement for affordable units. But for example, in Northbrook, they're very explicit, and I think I've noticed this in a number of other villages, that if you supply the affordable housing, you're entitled to density bonuses. So again, one of the constraints that we were looking at is, we have our special environment. We have a lot of other factors that we're trying to preserve. And so for us, simply increasing density to gain affordable housing often has side effects, negative effects that we're trying to, they go contrary to other things that we're trying to accomplish in the village. So without providing density bonuses in the context of getting one of these developments to pencil out, again, we looked at these other villages and thought that this was a realistic way to go. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was looking for. I mean, there was a lot of thought that was put into it, and I think it helps for people to kind of understand why we settled on those numbers. Thanks.
Trustee Smith.
Okay, so I have one question and one comment. So the question is, I didn't quite understand the tenure of the affordability. I think in the ordinance, there's something about things being affordable for 30 years. I didn't understand quite how that worked. I think for rentals, it's probably easy enough, but I didn't know if that also applied to the for sale affordability.
If someone were supplying an affordable unit in a for sale product and said, instead of the fee, we're going to provide it on site, then we would require covenants that run with the property for 30 years. So the way those covenants are structured, they look kind of like mortgages. Basically, they're full-blown documents that explain what the criteria are, how it's to be governed, and they.
So theoretically, then, Bruce, just in my head, that could mean that these affordable homes inflate or appreciate at a slower rate than the housing stock in the village of Riverwoods. Just as an example. Could be the opposite, but I think that's probably the more likely.
It's not wealth building.
Excuse me?
It is not wealth building.
Right.
The obvious intent of putting the restrictions on is to restrain the increase in the price of the unit at which it can be resold. Now, I mean, if the unit was placed on the free market, it would be one thing, but the price at which it can be resold always is constrained by what is then affordable to someone meeting these income thresholds. So that places a ceiling on the price of the unit.
So then also then by definition, just excuse me for not knowing this, but then a person has to meet certain income thresholds to be able to buy the affordable housing stock.
That's right.
Even over the 30 years.
That's right.
Oh, got it.
So for example, when in one of these restrictive covenants, when someone who's an eligible person has bought the unit, lived in it, let's say for 7 years and plans to sell it, there's a whole procedure for putting it on the property, on the market. And then when a buyer comes into view, that buyer has to submit income tax returns and other things to verify. I don't know, in 20 years, they may have to submit, tariff returns. But right now, they would submit income tax returns.
Very close.
No political commentary here.
I'm just trying to be, open-minded and flexible.
And then I guess, thank you for explaining that so I could better understand it. And then my comment is, in a village like of Riverwoods, where affordable housing stock is so small and the prospects are so small for that, do we really believe that in lieu of fees, I like the in lieu of land idea, but I wonder if the in lieu of fees really works so that we can then have those dollars held by the village or into a trust that's managed by the village to then create affordable housing stock?
So in thinking about this, I mean, we started with a small number of affordable units in 2005 when the State Act was passed. We adopted our first initial affordable housing plan. And then in the materials I think we discussed at the workshop, we still had a relatively low number of affordable units. Our housing stock is, I'm guessing, roughly 1,200 units. If our housing stock goes up to, say, 1,400 units or something like that, now we need, to meet the goals of the Affordable Housing Act, we need 140 of those units to be affordable. So when we incrementally add 5, 6, 7 units in a development of 140 units, or we add 10 units, we don't, in just a few developments that the village may potentially see, it's, in my view, it's very unlikely that we're going to ever actually reach that goal. We were moving toward it, but we're not going to reach it unless there's an opportunity in the village to develop a project that is devoted to affordable units that would have a higher number than we're going to accomplish by taking. Right. So that's the only, and that's, that's the reality of.
Well, and Bruce, that's sort of what I thought as well. And that's why I'm wondering, what does the in lieu of cash payment or the in lieu of fee actually get us? Because we'll never be able to create anything with it.
Well, for example, there are a couple of sites around the periphery of the village. There are a couple of areas that we don't know how they will play out in time. We've had some, people on Milwaukee Avenues, make suggestions to us.
Talk about the fact that maybe these trusts, that perhaps these trusts, the money in a trust could be used to assist in housing changes or improvements that for people of a limited income, of a senior, for example. Or those, the fee in lieu could go to a corporation that erects affordable housing in another community. The funds become available to create affordable housing. So there's a benefit that might not be within the village limits, but it creates a benefit in some place. So there were a couple of ways that could be. The fee in lieu is also a positive.
Okay.
Trustee Clayton, please.
It sounds to me like I'm very much in the minority on this, but I find that the idea of fee in lieu is selling our principles. And I don't see why we have fee in lieu at all. It's not our job to protect a developer's profitability. Deerfield just approved a 254-unit development with 25 affordable units. So apparently it can be done. And one of the ideas of affordability and having affordable units in our village is to bring more diversity to the village. Diversity on economic diversity and other elements of diversity. And if we want to go proactively after affordable housing, there are partnerships that we can develop. There are grants from the Illinois Housing Development Authority and the Lake County Affordable Housing Program that we can work with experts in the field to bring affordable housing to the village. And just speaking, perhaps this is overly curt, but I cannot vote for any ordinance that includes fee in lieu. I just think it's a violation of our fundamental principles.
Are there any comments? Any other comments, discussion? Trustee Jamerson, please.
Well, I was going to make a comment about Trustee Smith's question/comment. If a developer dedicates some land, right, they give us some property, then we could use that fee in lieu to help some other developer to create affordable housing on that land.
Yes.
And they could be all affordable housing on that land, all those units. So we could use that fee in lieu for something like that, assuming the parts came together, which they may or may not do.
Yeah. But this would allow the flexibility to do that if the opportunity were there.
But I certainly, to your comment, I certainly don't think it's appropriate in terms of our objectives as a village to be collecting money to be spent in some other village to attain affordable housing in another village. I think that there's a lot of elements to bringing affordable housing to our village. And as I said, there's a lot of dynamic in terms of the population of the village and so on that I think is really important. And I think if we can find a way, as you said, using land or other things, but I think taking money and then saying, okay, you can pay us rather than doing the affordable housing, I just think that sounds to me sort of unsavory.
Of course, that is being done in a number of villages, so.
That doesn't mean we have to do it here at Riverwoods, right?
Was that a hand? Trustee Eastman?
Yeah, I guess what I would add to that is, and I think kind of what I had mentioned before in my comments is, wouldn't it make more sense just to preserve flexibility? I mean, it doesn't mean, I think some of the issues previously were that, you know, developers found it hard to work with us, right? In previous developments, and understanding what was required of them simply because we have flexibility doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, that's the way that it's going to go. It's just that it preserves, you know, as many possible different options for whatever, you know, future board decides on a project.
I know we have a lot of priorities in the village, but I think that if we were to say that affordable housing is a priority for us, there are people that we can work with and there are grants that we can get. I mean, why can Libertyville put up a new development of 34 affordable units? Why can Wheeling put up unit apartments with 53 affordable units? There are developments going on in which the affordable units are being supplied. And I think that I like the land idea. I think that's a good one, but I guess I've said my piece. Thanks.
There any other further discussion on this at this point? No? Anyone? Okay, I think there's a motion for first reading then, right? Okay, is there a motion?
There is a motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved
and a
that.
second?
I moved that.
Oh, okay, all right. We've
I
got a
think.
second, you got a second, okay. Do we have it all straight? Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Thank you. There is no old business this evening. Committee reports, Finance, Economic Development, Trustee Clayton, please.
No report.
Communications, Trustee Dickon, please.
Wanted to briefly report on the progress of the recent direct mailings that have been sent out to the residents, one of which was an alarm registration postcard with a QR code. So I ran some stats, compared how we did this year compared to last year. And this year, we have 372 registrations compared to 260 as of last year. There were also significant spikes within the first week compared to the number of registrations that came in at the same time last year. As far as the quarterly postcard campaign that was sent out in mid-January, I ran some Google Analytics, and visits to the pages that were advertised with QR codes on that postcard, those visits almost doubled compared to last year. So people are, I don't know if that's going to be sustainable in the sense that, the QR codes for the most part are going to remain the same, but that's definitely something that shows that people are visiting the page and that the QR codes are working. That's all I've got.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments for Trustee Dickon? Okay, thank you very much. Woodlands Ecology Legal, Trustee Eastman, please.
Nothing to add other than just a reminder to attend the Woodland Cost Share Forum on, I believe it's February 25th, correct? Yeah, that'll be great, and that'll be great to get input that's robust from a lot of people on that important program. Thanks.
Any questions for our trustee? Right, Land Use and Roads, Trustee Hollander is not present. Do you have?
No, I never report on that. I thought you were going to land use strategy, so I was
There's
a little
the
premature.
word, the wording is
That
just
was a little
shade
premature.
different. Yeah. Well, get
Okay.
ready.
All right.
Okay, Building and Utilities, Stormwater, Trustee Jamerson, please.
Well, the building permit report is in the packet, and I will say that the 4 permits that were taken out in January are probably the lowest number of permits that we have had since I have been on the board in a month. So it's probably giving our building department just a nice respite. I'm sure that's not going to remain that way, but
Still plenty busy.
yeah, I know they're very busy. but
Orphans is coming,
I know. So anyways, that's all I have.
Are there any questions?
Have we made any progress in finding someone for the building department?
Yes, we have. Director Vasquez, would you like to address that?
Yes, we have made an offer with a candidate, and we're in the process of working our way through that process right now.
This is to help with inspections, by the way. Community Services, Trustee Smith, please.
Just 2 quick things. I was part of the mayor's energy and conservation meeting a couple of weeks ago, which was focused solely on the mayor's Monarch Pledge. Mayor Ford, I encourage Village of Riverwoods and for you to take action on that. I think it's a very important program. There's the ability not only to increase the density of pollinators and help them survive, but there may be some opportunities to put some of that stuff under power lines. So I think we should explore that with ComEd and whoever else that might be. So that was a couple of weeks ago. And then the next item is, speaking of Hefty Renew orange bags, I have a meeting next week on that to get an update from Swalco, since I'm on the executive board of directors there. And so I'll have more to report next meeting with orange bags.
Are there any questions for our trustee? Thank you very much. And I do have the Monarch thing. I've got it.
Just sign it.
Steve, well, I asked our village, it takes a little bit more. No, I asked our village ecologist to help fill it out. So I've gotten his response, and I just need to do it. It'll be done. It's got a March deadline, so I get it. Okay, Sustainability and Climate Action, Chairs Brightcoff and Valvaro.
The Sustainability and Climate Action Task Force is set to meet on February the 11th. We are working hard at writing the plan and preparing a presentation. We are also planning the Earth Day Arbor Day party for April, and invites have gone out. We've gotten Open Lands, Brushwood Center, the Lake County Forest Preserve is coming, Swalco's coming, bunches of people are coming, Citizens Climate Lobby. So, and we're going to try to figure out what the space limit is in terms of what the parking lot will accommodate in terms of any further invites, because there are a lot of other people that would be interested in joining us.
So that's April 26th.
Mhm.
Is the date of the Earth Day birthday party. And it's going to be, we hope, like an eco fair, that there'll be a lot of tables with a lot of different various ecological contributors.
Oh, and Whole Foods may be contributing food for it. So that is in process through the RPC being the representative organization, getting the donation.
South Lake Mosquito Abatement District, you might want to add George on there, George Bayless.
Okay.
He always says good stuff.
We'll do it.
Mosquito, he brings his own mosquitoes, it's okay. We don't have to supply any mosquitoes.
We're sending him a note as we speak.
Perfect. Are there any questions? Are there any questions for our chairs? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, strategic land use, Trustee Clayton.
Thank you. We've had over 350 responses to our survey, of which of 99 or so at least are some individual that has a big problem with the village. So we've been able to sort out.
Speak into the thing.
I can hear it.
99 responses
from an individual who has a problem with the village.
Okay.
And decided to take it out on the survey. At this particular point, we've got what we think is around 150 valid responses. And we're closing the survey on Friday. And then we're meeting with TSCA next week to begin analysis. And then we'll give a report to the board on where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our land use trustee? Okay. Seeing no reason to go into executive session, next date and time. There is a workshop, February 18th, right before the meeting, 6:30. It is on public roadways or privatization of streets. The Board of Trustees meeting will follow at 7:30. Both those meetings will take place in the boardroom. So just so you're prepared. And for the trustees, we'll try to have some Jimmy John's sandwiches as per usual. Yes, Trustee Dickens.
Is the workshop a public meeting or is
Yes,
it?
yes, workshops are, yes. There are different rules for participation at a workshop. It is strictly participation by the board, not public comments. So, but I am understanding that we will have a number of visitors. So we are going to have it in the boardroom. Seeing no more business, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you.